You had a lot of foreign travel in your career, and I was wondering if you had any particular stories about foreign travel, or what was it like to travel in foreign countries in those days, in the early part of your career? What was the was it a whole different vibe than what you experience when you go there now?
Well, for the most part, it would be a different vibe from the standpoint that certainly at that point, it, there was no backstory. I had no experience with that. I've talked about in the past, like when I was growing up. I mean, if maybe the family drove to San Francisco or San Diego or something, that was it. And in '71, I think was the first time I really got out of the country, went to the UK with James. And it just suddenly you're in this other world. You got to suddenly be looking the other way when you're crossing a street so you don't get run over. And we had a bus with the driver's name was Pepsi, and just driving up through the Lakes region in the north uh, of England, going into Scotland, and you're just looking out the window, going, the only time I've ever seen this is like in our stack of National Geos at home, kind of thing. And then going to Japan right after that, and just wandering around Japan, just going, I've never experienced. I mean, maybe in San Francisco, went to like, Chinatown or something like that, just to see a little bit different culture. But I think I've talked about it in the past that I thought really one of the greatest gifts that this business has given me is the travel. Because I've gotten to go places I would have never gone to had I been on my own and making my own decisions about it. And sometimes you get to a place like when I was with Toto and we were in Norway and driving down from Boda, which is 300 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle, was the first town we played. And then we were in our tour bus, just going down the whole west coast of Norway and getting on the ferries in the bus going across the fjords and some of the most beautiful land I've ever seen. These spectacular mountains that just ran right up to the coast with waterfalls and these gorgeous villages. And then when we did Phil Collins's 2004 tour, the Not Dead Yet tour, the whole essence of that tour from Phil's standpoint was to play places we had never been.
Yeah.
So suddenly we were in Latvia and Estonia, went through Russia, Middle East, and we're just all going, this is unbelievable. In Bulgaria uh, and one of the things you come away with on that though is if you're doing music, it's everybody's the same. You go to these places and they're having their political strife and all that. Man, when they show up at a concert, whole other ball game going on.
The great equalizer.
It really is. And one of the greatest moments on that, I don't know if I've talked to like on the clubhouse or anything about that, but when we played in Beirut, we had just come from I mean, this is the weird shit that goes on. We had just played in Jerusalem, but this was with Phil. And to go from Jerusalem to Beirut is a 150-mile drive. It's nothing. It's not a big deal. Well, because of the political environment, we, our trucks couldn't go there. They couldn't cross the border. So what we ended up doing was having to rent an Antonov from Russia, which is the biggest plane in the world. And actually, the one we used was blown up in the Ukrainian war.
Oh,
I
wow.
saw it on TV, and they were showing this plane that had been destroyed, and it was the one we had used
Mm,
because I think there was only two of them in existence at that point. But
right.
we had to load all the gear into the Antonov and fly it to Larnaca in Cyprus to clear customs.
Mm,
Then they released it. Then it went on to Lebanon. Well, it cost $1 million to go 150 miles. It almost destroyed the tour financially. But the thing that was so you're dealing with this political nonsense. Well, we do the gig, and the next day on our plane, the publicist Jacqueline comes on, and she's got a newspaper, and she goes, "Check this out." Well, the president of Lebanon and his arch rival were both at the gig, and they're apparently bitter, bitter enemies. Well, they and their wives are the first four seats in the center of the front row. And by the end of the show, they're all holding hands in a kumbaya kind of a moment. And that was the front page of the Lebanese newspaper. And she said, this just did more for the people of Lebanon than all the crap they're going through, to see these two guys drop their guard and just enjoying a concert. So there's
Power of
all,
music.
yeah, and it's the music that brought it all together. It was weird. Like when we were in Russia, uh, we played this massive. It was like a blimp hangar or something, but it was packed with people. But the very like front section that maybe had 200 people in it was all the proletariat,
Mm.
and they're all kind of sitting like this. All these guys, and their wives are sitting with it, and the whole place is being quiet. They don't know what to do. And Phil finally got pissed off, and he went down and he made them all stand up and start dancing and stuff. The minute they did that, the whole place erupted and people were all dancing, but they were afraid to do anything until
Permission.
these
Sure.
guys. Yeah, and you just watch this stuff and you just go, this is such insanity, where I feel so blessed every day that I get to do a job that brings happiness to people. We all have our own strifes through it all and all that, but for the most part, there's a magic to every time you strap on an instrument and get in front of people and watch their faces. You know that there's somebody there who's may just had one of the worst days of their life, and all of a sudden they're transported musically, and for nothing else, for a couple of hours they forgot about all the hell that just went on that day. And I've had friends that have come to shows that ended up going home and asking for a divorce. They
Oh
said,
wow.
I sat there through that show and listened to that music, especially like some of the James Taylor stuff, and they just went, I just came to a realization, and it motivated them to change their lives. I mean, it's just weird how different things happen like that, but it's fun when you're, first off, it's fun when you're sober, so you can enjoy it all. And that for
Right.
me was probably one of the more fortunate things for me. And it's not a pat on the back but for the fact I never drank or did drugs or anything like that.
Right.
Anytime I had a chance to go do something, I could do it with a certain amount of clarity
Yeah.
and and had memories, rather than being around guys that are going, I don't remember being here. I don't remember any of this. And I go, we were, but you were not really here. You were in another space at that point.
Yeah. It's amazing, speaking about how it breaks down barriers. I thought much the same thing at the time about the Billy Joel concert in Russia because he really, it seemed like that was really groundbreaking. And I think that was 1984. I can't remember exactly when you guys were there.
We were there, I think, in 86.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we went and did this peace. There was a peace march that went from St. Petersburg, or at the time from,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
was it Stalingrad? I think it was St. Petersburg was called Stalingrad at that point. And they marched to Moscow. And it was like Casey Kasem and his wife and all these people were doing this huge march. And then we flew over, and it was James Taylor, the Doobie Brothers, Santana, Bonnie Raitt, I forget who else was with us, and then an equal number of Russian Soviet acts on it. And we played outside of Moscow. It was probably about 30,000 people at the show, and probably about 20,000 police or army guarding the danger of all these people listening to music.
Yeah.
But Bill Graham was with us and stuff, and it was one of those things. It was like the ultimate, just watching people holding hands and being so emotional. It was fantastic. And it was weird. Like they put us up in a hotel just outside of Moscow, and it looked like it was falling apart. I mean, it looked like it was maybe built in the 20s, and it had never been made. And I was talking to the people there, and they said, "Oh, it was built in 1980 for the Olympics that the U.S. boycotted." So we never went over there. And so they built these places and then just never did anything with them. And they were just decrepit, but getting a chance to, see things like that, to see Russia at that point, to when we went to Germany, when the Berlin Wall was still up, and going through Checkpoint Charlie into East Berlin and experiencing the oppressive feeling that had, and then coming back in '90 when the wall had come down, and Phil, we did like that huge Berlin concert, and that same weekend Pink Floyd was doing the Wall there too. So there was an energy in that town. And we went back across, we went into what was East Berlin, and all of a sudden you're seeing Tiffany's and all these shops over there, and you're just going, "What the hell happened?" I mean, at this point, Checkpoint Charlie is just a tourist booth.
Yeah, you can tell at that point that you were present at the time when the whole world was changing.
Yeah, it was profound. It was really profound. And plus, when you're just getting to talk to people in these other countries, even if you're struggling with the language. I mean, I remember being, I think it was '83. My wife and I were, she studied cooking, and we took a trip with this cooking group and went to China. And we hit places in China that they had never seen people that looked like us. People would say to me, "Oh, you went to China, so did you go to Hong Kong?" Went, Hong Kong's not China. Hong Kong's like going to Beverly Hills. You know, when you're in Chengdu and Guangzhou, I remember we went when we were in Xi'an. That's where they discovered that the terracotta army
Right,
that was buried there. And when we were there, they had just found that they had only excavated a small amount of it, and they stopped their excavation because they really didn't have the ability to, as archaeologists, to address it. So they kind of closed it off. And one of the things that they said is absolutely no photography here,
right.
and they didn't know about autofocus cameras. So, like when somebody would do this, they would come up and confiscate the camera. I was walking around just holding mine at my hip and snapping pictures, and I got tons of pictures of all these
Yeah.
terracotta soldiers and chariots and horses and so. And now it's like this mass. It's almost like a city has evolved around that. But
Is
we
that
got,
before? Is that before they built the shelter and everything over it? Was
yeah,
it still outside?
still outside. Yeah. So
Hmm.
it was amazing, and getting to go see the Great Wall at
Yeah.
that point, that little couple of feet of it that you could see, and it's thousands of miles, but and then hearing the story about how all this stuff happens, it's like, it's just, it's great to me. I mean, the things that have been availed to me in my life because of playing a piece of lumber, it's
Yeah.